Smoothest comeback line that'll work 99% of the time? Viewers Edition. Sometimes the perfect words come to you at the perfect time. We asked for your stories in the comments, and oh my, did you ever deliver. Let's hear all about your awesome comeback lines. Story 1. An old one. I was the black girl in a mostly white school in a rather rural town. To say I got bullied would be an understatement. Lots of N-words, B-words, and C-words galore, along with physical assault and destruction of property. There was one girl, I'll call her Amber, who belonged to the same church me and my family went to up there. Because her sister, a complete sweetheart, was part of the youth group, I went over to her house a lot and got to know the family. I really know the family. I learned through the grapevine that Amber's mom and stepdad, who she's known as Dad almost her entire life, were going through some deep crap that would later end in a divorce and custody battle for her half-brother. At school, Amber was one of my biggest bullies, chronically accosting and harassing me, trying to cut my hair when I wasn't looking, stealing my stuff, and all of that. On one particularly heinous day, she had decided that today was the day to throw out as many racially charged words as she could at the end of class, but the teacher couldn't hear her with her posse and guy friends to back her up. Listening, unaffiliated students didn't say anything, probably due to shock and/or bystander syndrome. Normally, I would feel my anger boil and try to scramble for words to defend myself, but on that day, I looked at her, remembering the phrase, hurt people, hurt people. I calmly replied, "Bullying me isn't going to fix your home life, Amber." At that, she went into a fit of rage so hard her friends had to hold her back, and the teacher finally paid attention. Instead of sticking around while she called me a effing B-word and as many iterations as she could, I just grabbed my bag and left for lunch. The happy ending is that when we had an anti-bullying seminar, she was one of the many kids who gave me an apology for their behavior. I genuinely hope she's found some sort of inner peace now, but that, over a decade later, is still one of my best comebacks. Oh my God, this comeback line gave me life! Not only was it devastating, but rooted in truth and actually something this girl even maybe needed to hear. Sometimes comeback lines are super cruel and too far, but this one feels like it actually needed to be said, as hurtful as it may have been in the moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't help but absolutely love this one. No criticisms. A+. Story 2. Mine was pretty recent. I like dinosaurs, which in high school makes you very easy to pick on. So one time a girl in the same year as me, 9, comes up to me with her boyfriend who looked like he was in year 12 or so, this is surprisingly common in my school, to intimidate me or something. And she says, "So you're the kid who likes dinosaurs, huh?" I looked at her and then her boyfriend and then back to her and said, "Oh, cool, it looks like I'm not the only one in this school that likes fossils." Not a bad comeback, but it also makes me feel ancient. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't need any more reminders of how old I'm getting. I already have to deal with mirrors. Story 3. I ended up going to a college to finish getting my degree. Mind you, I was 36 when this happened. I was in a group discussion in class when this very attractive girl, 19 years old, asked how old I was, to which I replied 36. She loudly blurted out, "Oh my God, you're old enough to be my dad." This got a "oh" response from the class, followed by light laughter from everyone. I waited a few seconds for it to die down before I nonchalantly replied with, "You can call me daddy if you want to." The whole class erupted in laughter, causing this girl to turn red and give a look of, "Yep, he got me on that one." Story 4. Here's one. I asked my mom a few days ago what okra tastes like, and she responded saying it is a good vegetable. This goes on for some time, and I eventually get so tired of it, I decide to pull up her class. I responded, "Mom, why can't you tell me what okra tastes like? Aren't you in an analytical class?" My dad was proud of me, while my mom just stared at me after that. That was the first time I ever used my own comeback. Story 5. One of my better comebacks came while playing in a soccer game. I despised my one coach and refused to play for a year, but he left and we got a new one I liked. I still didn't play right away because my last coach stole my love of the game, but was eventually convinced to join because I was a good defender. First game I played and I played stopper. I didn't feel bad because the guy before me didn't miss any practice, but the defensive captain wanted me there instead, so the coach okayed it. I hadn't touched a soccer ball seriously in 2 years. To play it safe and get back in rhythm, if I was ever pressured, I just kicked the ball out of bounds so as to not risk turning the ball over and just to get used to the game again. Many of the fans were telling me I was trash and saying he can only kick it out because he can't play. I played a good game after not practicing for almost 2 years, but I was getting sick of the fans. At one point, stole the ball again and sent it upfield. I heard them making snarky comments about me, such as, "Hey, you finally got it up the field instead of out." I stopped, turned, and looked at them and said, "Have any of your kids scored yet? Yeah, that's what I thought." We were up 3-0. My teammates who heard started laughing. Weirdly, the fans didn't say anything to me after that. On a side note, I think I now see why fans and coaches never really liked me. I had a tendency to play aggressive, not dirty, and get in discussions with coaches and fans because they didn't like the way I played and they verbalized it to me, to which I would respond. Ooh, getting snippy with soccer fans? A little too dangerous for my blood, but I appreciate your bravery. Sounds like you've got the makings of a regular Roy Kent, eh? I'm more of a Ted Lasso in my mind, or maybe Coach Beard. Okay, now I'm curious. Ted Lasso fans, if I were a character in Ted Lasso, any character, which would I be? Be honest. Story 6. In 7th grade, we had a project. The way things worked out in school is that you had certain learning disabilities, you could get extra time on assignments. In the project, you got to choose anyone to work with. If one person in your group had extended time, the whole group got it. So after I finished my project, the teacher said, "I need some of my strong people to put the textbooks back," and me, having nothing to do, decided to help. I have a stack of textbooks and collected a few more from the table with people still working on their project. One of them had extended time. In the group, there was this kid that was always mean for no reason. He said to me, "Oh, look at you being all big and strong," to which I responded, "Oh, look at me finishing my project," and I walked away. Still proud of that to this day. Story 7. In high school, I was one of those kids that didn't really get involved with the others and didn't really have that many friends. One day in English, the teacher had set up our chairs in rows as we were going to watch a movie, Romeo and Juliet most likely. I was sitting in the front row and this chubby kid, Brady, came up to me and said, "That seat's taken." And I scoot over to the next seat. He then stops me again and says, "That seat's also taken." Without another thought, I said, "Why, you need to take up both?" My brain caught up with my mouth and realized what I said. Needless to say, the people behind us were stunned, trying not to laugh. Story 8. I remember this very vividly. I was in, 2nd grade, and my class had just finished lunch, so we were lined up in the lunchroom getting ready to leave, and my friend next to me was saying something very dumb. It was so dumb that I erased it out of my cranium. Anyway, he made the comment, and very conveniently, I sneezed as soon as he was finished. And so I looked up at him after I sneezed and said, "Sorry, I'm allergic to bad jokes." It would sound pathetic now, but that was the 2nd grade. Back then, the best comeback was, "Yo mama is so fat," so I was proud. Honestly, even as an adult, I would get a good chuckle if somebody said that. So for a 2nd grader, that's a solid comeback. Sometimes it's the simpler comebacks that are the most effective. I like it. Story 9. This happened to one of my cultural exchanges for Youth Journalists trip back in 2018. We went to Japan for sightseeing and it was hella fun. There were 4 representatives from India and they weren't really nice to me. I got grouped with them and they weren't really happy about it. The whole point of the trip was to have an experience in sightseeing. Basically, I was the goofiest in the group. I would always test out the stuff, eat what they offered, and I would make the best out of everything. So I quickly became the tour group's favorite student. Then, one of the Indians told me that I shouldn't behave like a Filipino in a clean country like Japan. I was severely hurt by those words that I felt like crying. While on the trip, the others are just too in character and they're always taking notes on their laptops and they keep on asking questions like, "When was this created? What period did this temple exist?" Their curiosity was really nice, but the tour group felt like they weren't enjoying the trip. So in the end, they made us write an article about our experience on the trip. Apparently, the Indian reps made an article about the place and not their experience, so I ended up winning the big prize. Obviously, they weren't really happy, so they came up to me after the awarding and ranted at me with the strongest accent ever. Some of their lines were, "Wait till our advisor hears about this. Indian press is gonna hate you. Why'd you win? You don't even give a F about this trip." I froze, but I wasn't scared. And I don't know what went on in my mind because I was thinking about the best comeback and what came out of my mouth was 100 times better. So after the girl said, "You so unfair, B," I just said, "Can you speak in English?" And their faces were like, they quickly said remarks about me being racist, and I don't really understand anything they said, but I remember one of them yelled, "Bring your Filipino butt back to your dirty butt country." And I said, I'm okay with that. At least I'm going to be bringing this Filipino butt back to my country along with that trophy. P.S. I got called by their advisor afterwards, and they reprimanded me real hard. I'm not sure what kind of trip this is or why someone else's advisor is calling you like that, but these other folks sound like jerks. Normally, I wouldn't be okay with folks using another group's ability to pronounce English as a source of ridicule, but I mean, you're both from countries where English isn't the main language, so I feel like I really don't have the understanding to judge on that account. And they were being jerks. Story 10. These were great stories. I remember one day at my sixth form, one of our support staff walked over to the school buses and taxis were at this support, asked me as she pointed at my taxi, "Is that you over there?" And I sarcastically said, "No, that's my taxi. I'm here." And we both cracked up. This reminds me of one of my favorite Riff Tracks moments. "How do you feel?" "With my hands." Story 11. For some reason, the kid asked me what I got on my ELA test. I got a high grade, but I decided not to tell him. Instead, I said the most random thing ever. "Santa is real." He laughed and snickered with his friends. About 5 minutes later, he called me across the room and said, "Santa isn't real." I yelled back, "Only reason you don't believe in Santa is because you never got any presents." The teacher started to laugh. My proudest moment. Story 12. I think I have made a better comeback, but this is recent enough for me to remember. Almost all the kids in my tuition are stupid. One day in class, after the teacher had asked everyone the question and nobody knew the answer, I said the correct answer in a frustrated tone. A girl says, "Don't try to act smart." And I go, "I don't need to act." Everyone, 7 to 8 people, including her and the teacher, were laughing. Story 13. I have one. So my family had Thanksgiving early at my grandma's house and we were playing apples to apples. Then halfway through, my mom started going on a tangent about how she is a woman of mystery, and without hesitation I screamed, "I know the asparagus story!" The entire table, including people from Canada that hadn't seen my mom since 2006, erupted in laughter. Background information, the asparagus story was a really embarrassing story of my mom. And yet you leave us in the dark. We don't know the asparagus story, and now I don't know if I ever will. Okay, this is a request, directly from Mr. Facts. Will you tell me the story? Go find me on Twitter, @KlausVonH, and DM me the story. I must know. I won't tell anyone else. To heck with them. This is just for me. Story 14. I've seen a few of these in movies or heard them told as jokes. I got one from my home life. My older brother was dieting for reasons, and he said like 3 times in maybe an hour that he had lost 50 pounds, which was such an exaggeration it was cringy. He said it one more time, and my dad yelled, "Hell, your face weighs 50 pounds. I chortled, trying not to really laugh, but my brother started laughing, so he, my dad, and me all just broke up. I still remember that being one of very few genuine laughs the 3 of us ever shared. Story 15. Worked at a warehouse, and it was an abrasive environment. My coworkers' jokes/antics could get quite crude and annoying. I had one coworker who decided to mess with me by running by me and smacking/tagging my belly. It annoyed the crap out of me, but I didn't want to retaliate and get in trouble. So I put up with it for a few days, then one day he just walks up to me, pokes my belly, and stands there. I ask him why he's doing this, and he just looks at me with a dumb butt grin and says, "Because you're fat." He had quite the prominent nose, and he was insecure about it, so I clapped back with, "Well, I may be fat, but if I fall down face first, at least my D will hit the ground before my nose does." He just looked at me stunned and was a little upset, but oddly enough, he stopped after that, and it's almost like he respected me to a degree afterwards. He was a pretty cool guy after that. Honestly, there are some people out there who will give you crap until you start giving it back. Not saying I think that's a great way to be, but I've definitely come across a few people who were almost insufferable until I started to dish it back at them. Then again, it makes me wonder if that was really a good thing, you know? Is there now one less monster to deal with, or one more? Story 16. Not really a comeback, but back in school, I was in a class with a couple of friends that were a little slower than me. They were having problems understanding the lesson, and I was on the table in front of them, so I turned myself around and started helping them to understand what the teacher was saying. The teacher called my name and asked if I had heard what she said while I was talking to my mates, and I told her I heard exactly what she said. She asked me to repeat what she said, and I repeated what she said verbatim. Her face dropped from a scowl, and she just said, "You have the most annoying habit of talking and listening at the same time." Class laughed a little, went back to what they were doing. I got away with all sorts of messing around in school because I actually got the work done. They never tried to separate me and friends because of that, even if we weren't always quiet. Story 17. I've got two good comeback stories. The second one is the best. Story 1. I have a tendency to stroke my beard whenever I'm bored. One night I went to my uncle's cookout for a family get-together. As we're sitting around the fire pit, I started stroking my beard. One cousin was drinking quite a bit and was being obnoxious and to the other family members. He sees me stroking my beard and says, "Oh, great and wise wizard, tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking?" I respond with, "I'm thinking you should shut up." We all start laughing as he stumbles away in embarrassment. Story 18. Mine wasn't really a comeback, but somewhat like one. In the past, I've always leaned on my leg at the dinner table at supper/breakfast. We have lunch individually, so my mom and dad didn't care. My dad always seemed to make a big deal about it because it was impolite. During dinner one day, we, mom, dad, and I, were having jambalaya, a southern casserole that took a long time to make, and everyone else, my sister and my two brothers, were eating cereal, Pop-Tarts, etc. Well, my dad caught me leaning on my leg again and mildly fussed, "Put your leg down, it's impolite." And without missing a beat, I replied, "Well, I'm eating your food." He replied, "Touché," mildly embarrassed, and he didn't say anything after that. I'm not actually sure I get it. Anyone in the comments want to give me a little insight? Also, damn, this has me wanting to make jambalaya again. I learned how in my 20s, but I haven't made it in over a decade. I'm not sure I would call it a casserole, but here in the Midwest, casseroles or hot dishes have a different feel to them. Jambalaya is just pure deliciousness. Story 19. This was a few years ago. I have a slight hormone imbalance, and as a result, I've been able to grow facial hair even before I hit puberty. As you can imagine, I was bullied a lot for this, elementary through high school. One day when I was in high school, this smooth-cheeked kid started giving me a hard time about my issue. He said stuff like, "You forgot to shave this morning, and you'll only get gay guys with that," and just being generally obnoxious. Finally, I said, "Yeah, that's right. I have a mustache that I've been growing since a single-digit age, and you've got nothing because I clearly have more balls than you." His face literally turned into that Patrick Star meme from the SpongeBob movie, and nobody ever gave me a hard time about my facial hair again. Story 20. I remember this one from middle school. One of the older kids in the grade saw me talking to my friends and thought it'd be a great idea to pick on me. I didn't get it at the time. They were trying to pick on me because they sounded friendly but were asking weird questions. One of them asked if I live in a small apartment, and I said, "No, I live in a big house." They go on to say, "That must be pretty sad to sleep in a big house by yourself." I go, "Well, where do you sleep? In a car?" I didn't even mean it as an insult, just like an actual question. They looked like they got offended and just said, "See you later." My friend just looked at me like I just murdered a guy in front of them. Unintentional comeback. Nice. Honestly, makes it all the more devastating because they could probably hear the genuineness in your voice. The fact that you might actually think that of him, I bet that bothered him for a long time, and you weren't even trying to be mean. You got to wreck someone, and they got something to think about. Well played. Story 21. All right, I've had a few good comebacks during my life, but unfortunately I also have the memory span of a goldfish. There was this one girl I remember very clearly, though. She was a bully, got my best friend so mad that he kicked a hole in the bathroom wall. Now me, I'm not the type to come back. I usually just wait it out. You might call me laid back. My pastor might call me long-suffering. This girl might call me a coward. Anyway, my friend had some serious self-esteem issues at the time, and we were total dorks. We were just being guys on our way back to class, and she goes, "You realize you just look like an idiot, right?" And I, without missing a beat, reply, "Oh, sorry, if you're looking for a mirror, I believe there's one in the washroom." Absolutely priceless. Story 22. This happened like last year in October. I was sitting in class when all of a sudden the topic switched to nasty-looking hair. The girl sitting next to me said, "Ew, why is your hair so greasy?" The class clown burst out in laughter, asking me if I was going to take that. I just sat there for a good 2 seconds analyzing her hair, which was a sideways mohawk. Then all of a sudden I spat out, "I know you can't be talking when your hairline goes all the way to the West Coast." And by now the teacher was listening and she, along with the rest of the class, started laughing so hard, and I was just sitting there in disbelief that me, a shy girl, had the courage to say something like that. To get away with murder like that in the middle of a classroom? Brutal. Like, I really don't care to mock people because of appearance, but also, if folks are going to throw a punch, sometimes you gotta throw one back, metaphorically speaking. And what you said there, that was a haymaker. Story 23. Not a comeback, but just one of my favorite moments in life. 8th grade chorus class. Many annoying people joined because that year we got a trip to an amusement park, an easy A. One time we had a sub, and this boy, who always causes trouble, starts throwing a tantrum because he thinks it's funny towards the sub. He was jumping up and down, screaming, asking the sub to take a picture with him that she didn't want to do, etc. So, not having it, I rest my head on my hand and lower all my fingers except the middle one toward him. He's turned around, not facing me, and casually scroll on my phone. About a minute later, he turns around and notices it and points at me, screaming, jumping up and down, and says, "She's doing the middle finger to me." I can't help but smile, but the best part is when the substitute pretends not to see anything and asks him one more time to go sit down, he finally does. New second favorite substitute, and the praise I got from my friends was amazing. Definitely one of my favorite memories. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.